Today we're going to be talking about perimeter, area, and volume. At the beginning of the quarter, we introduced the concepts of perimeter and area. We used our understanding of perimeter to identify a pattern called a formula for finding the perimeter of a rectangular shape using the equation P equals 2L plus 2W, or a similar formula like P equals 2 times L plus W also works. In these formulas, P is the perimeter, L is the length, and W is the width. We looked at the area of a rectangle and used A equals L times W, where A is the area, L is the length, and W is the width, to calculate this. We also recognized how area and perimeter use the same two measurements to calculate different things. In this unit, we will look at how we can find an unknown value if all the other values are given. We will also introduce the volume of a rectangular prism, which also relates closely to perimeter and area, but is also a different calculation. Example 1 says, if the area of a rectangular room is 200 square feet and one side is 15 feet, what is the other dimension? So first we want to draw the rectangular room. And we know that the area is 200 square feet. That means that the length times the width is equal to 200 square feet. So 200 is equal to the length times the width. I'm just going to write those as L times W. And now we know that one of either the length or the width is 15 feet. So I'll just replace that with L. So we have 200 equals 15W. So basically we are trying to find the value for W. Now we know that 15 times W is equal to 200. And so the way that we're going to figure out the value of W is whenever we're dealing with equations, as long as you do one thing to one side and as long as you do the same thing to the other side, most of the time the two sides will remain equal. So what I can do here to figure out what our width is I can divide both sides by 15. What that does is on the right-hand side, 15W divided by 15, we are just left with W. And then on the left-hand side, we can simplify 200 divided by 15. I'm just going to round that to 2 decimal places, 13.33. So when it asks what is the other dimension, we can say that the width is 13.33 feet. Now, the second question says list the perimeter and explain how you calculated it. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this stuff here. And we want to find the perimeter, and we know that the perimeter is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, which is basically just adding up all the side lengths together. So the perimeter is equal to 2 times the length, which we know is 15, and 2 times the width, which is 13.33. And so we want to go ahead and simplify that to figure out what our perimeter value is. And if I used order of operations, I'm going to do multiplication first. So 2 times 15 is 30, plus 2 times 13.33. And then I want to do that next multiplication. So we're going to have 30 plus, if we multiply 2 times 13.33, that will give us 26.66. And then if you add those values together, you'll get that the perimeter is equal to 56.66 feet. And so I will leave it up to you to write an explanation, maybe a sentence or two about how you go about calculating that. So I will leave that up to you to write out. Example 2 says, the volume of a rectangular prism can be defined as the amount of holding room it has. Instead of an area, which is a two-dimensional measure, this measurement tells us how much space is available to hold a liquid. So this is a three-dimensional measure. We specifically say a liquid because it will fill in every bit of space. To hold something, we need to have sides so things don't spill out. We call this a volume. How high the sides are will determine how much volume exists inside the rectangular prism. A swimming pool could be considered a rectangular prism because of its rectangular shape. Let us assume this pool is 5 feet wide, 15 feet long, and 6 feet deep. How many cubic feet of water would fit in this pool? So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to draw this pool. So I'm drawing dotted lines to represent if we're facing the pool from the front, we can't see those dotted lines, but they are there to form this shape, which we call a rectangular prism. So this here is going to be 15 feet. We know the depth is 6 feet, and the width, we'll say, is 5 feet. And if we were thinking about area, basically the front of the pool is a rectangle. And so if we wanted to calculate the area of just that green front face, it'd be 6 times 5, which would give us 30. But then we have all this 15 feet going back here, all that stuff. And so basically we want to multiply the 30 by the 15 since that's how much it's being stretched back. So the volume of a rectangular prism is equal to the length times the width times the depth, or the height, whatever you want to call it. So in this case, I'm going to abbreviate it to volume, or V, equals length times width times height. And so I'm just going to replace those values. So we know that the length is 15, the width is 5, and the height, or the depth, is 6. So I said earlier that we have 5 times 6, so I can multiply that first since multiplication is commutative. Basically, that means that because we have multiplication as our only option, I can do it in any order. So 5 times 6 is 30, so 15 times 30. And then if we multiply that, we get that the volume is 450 cubic feet. What that tells us is that we would be able to put 450 cubic feet of water into this specific swimming pool.